The morning of March 29th, 1461, was unlike any other in England's tumultuous history. The northern fields of Yorkshire, coated in late winter snow, were about to witness the bloodiest battle of the Wars of the Roses. Two rival factions, the House of York, led by Edward IV, and the House of Lancaster, loyal to the deposed King Henry VI, stood poised for war. Edward, the newly proclaimed King of England, sought to consolidate his claim by delivering a decisive blow to the Lancastrians. His opponent, the formidable Henry Beaufort, Duke of Somerset, was equally determined to restore Henry VI, the weak but rightful king, to his throne. Henry marched his entire force of 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers towards the open plains to meet Edward and the Yorkists for battle near the English village of Towton. For years, England had been torn between the supporters of the Red Rose, Lancaster, and the White Rose, York. The conflict had reached its peak after the Battle of Wakefield in 1460, where Edward's father, Richard, Duke of York, was slain, and at St. Albans in 1461, where the Lancastrians had briefly regained control. However, Edward, young and ambitious, had turned the tide at Mortimer's Cross and triumphantly entered London, where he was crowned king. Yet, his rule was far from secure. The Lancastrians, retreating north, had regrouped under Somerset and Queen Margaret of Anjou, rallying their forces in Yorkshire. Edward knew that to truly claim the throne, he had to crush the Lancastrian army in open battle. And so, on Palm Sunday, the two sides met near the village of Towton. The battlefield stretched over a mile wide, bordered by marshy ground and rolling hills, whilst snow fell relentlessly. The armies were among the largest at the time. Modern historians believe that a combined figure of 50,000 to 65,000 in total to be an accurate account, which was between 1% and 2% of the English population at the time. The Yorkists formed up just as the Lancastrians finished deployment. Edward's army was outnumbered, and the Duke of Norfolk's troops had yet to arrive to join them. The Yorkist vanguard was commanded by William Neville, Earl of Kent. Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, commanded the Yorkist rearguard alongside King Edward. Sources variously mention the Duke of Somerset, Trollope, the Earl of Northumberland, and the Duke of Exeter as the commanders of the Lancastrian host, but show little agreement as to which portion of the host each of them was assigned. The composition of both armies was similar: longbowmen positioned at the front, light and heavy cavalry at the rear and flanks. A mix of armored men-at-arms made up the bulk of each force. Polearm infantry were scattered throughout the ranks, with each side fielding a few hundred heavily armored foot knights, who were covered from head to toe in steel-plated armor, a luxury only very few could afford during the 15th century. Prior to deploying for battle, Lancastrian cavalry were hidden nearby in a forested area called Castle Hill Wood, driven by fierce winds from the north. Edward's commander, Lord Fauconberg, saw an advantage. The wind was at their backs. He ordered the Yorkist archers to fire first, their arrows soaring farther than the enemy's. As thousands of deadly shafts rained down on the packed ranks of the Lancastrians, panic set in. Many, blinded by snow and blood, were struck before they could retaliate. When they attempted to return fire, the Yorkist archers ran up and down the field, making it difficult for the Lancastrian archers to hit their target. coupled with the fact that the wind was blowing toward them, forced their arrows short of the mark. Their arrows embedded uselessly into the frozen ground. Yorkist archers, seizing the opportunity, advanced, plucking spent arrows from the earth and firing them back at their foes. Losing the ranged exchange decisively, an enraged and desperate Somerset ordered a full-scale charge. Edward and the Yorkists charged to meet them head-on. Thousands of men clashed in a brutal melee, swords biting into steel and flesh alike. The battle devolved into a gruesome, grinding struggle. The battle devolved into a gruesome, grinding struggle, where neither side could gain an upper hand. The Lancastrians had the numerical advantage, bolstered by reinforcements under the Earl of Northumberland. Their ranks pressed hard against the Yorkists, pushing them back, inch by inch, toward the River Cock. For 3 hours, the men fought in the bitter cold, their boots slipping on blood-soaked snow. The dead piled so high that men fought atop corpses, hacking and stabbing in the desperate press. The air was filled with the screams of the dying and the clash of steel upon steel. As the battle raged on, the Lancastrian cavalry hidden within Castle Hill Wood charged out and attacked the Yorkist left flank. The Yorkist left fell into disarray, and several men started to flee. Edward himself had to take command of his left flank to save the situation. By engaging in the fight and encouraging his followers, his example inspired many to stand their ground. Edward's forces were on the verge of collapse when a distant sight signaled hope for the Yorkists. John de Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, had arrived with fresh Yorkist troops. The Duke led heavy cavalry followed by infantry swiftly towards the bloody melee. Norfolk's heavily mounted cavalry smashed into the Lancastrian left flank, causing severe physical damage as well as psychological damage across the Lancastrian ranks. The Lancastrians continued to give fight, but the advantage had shifted to the Yorkists. The tired Red Rose soldiers could no longer hold their line. What followed was a massacre. The Lancastrians, seeing their lines broken, turned and fled, as small groups of men began fleeing for their lives. Many discarded their weapons and armor, hoping to outrun their pursuers, but the Yorkists were merciless. The retreat quickly turned into a slaughter. Many Lancastrians, desperate to escape, rushed towards Cockbeck, a swollen, icy river behind their lines. The banks, slick with blood and mud, offered no escape. Hundreds plunged into the frigid water, weighed down by their armor, and drowned. Others were cut down as Yorkist cavalry hunted them mercilessly. According to chroniclers, no prisoners were taken. Edward had ordered a policy of total destruction. The battle was so brutal that some reports claim 28,000 men perished, making it the deadliest battle fought on English soil.